is so neat. So we're going to begin asking Felipe to kindly read a message before our prayer, right? Just the radio.
Good morning, friends. Today we're going to start by reading a message from the book Our Daily Bread, psychographed by the medium Chico Xavier, by the spirit Emmanuel. So, message number 60, the logic of providence. After you were illumined, you endured a great struggle against afflictions. Paul in Hebrews 10:32. Usually, those who cultivate a sincere faith are considered great sufferers in the world. In fact, there are those who affirm that they deliberately avoid from religious circles because they fear the contagion of spiritual suffering. In everyday life, the godless, the ignorant, and the frivolous exhibit themselves spectacularly through bizarre shades of outward fantasy. However, as they approach the heavenly truths before attaining access to the lasting joys of higher spirituality, they pass through long tunnels of sadness, downheartedness, and taciturnity. This is natural, for there will always be much soul searching after insanity and remorse brought on by immoderation. The problem, however, entails a larger explanation. The mercy that is manifested in God's justice transcends human comprehension. The Father confers in his ignorant and lost children the right of more trying experiences only after they have been enlightened, only after they have learned to see with their eternal spirit will life offer them different values. From that moment on, the strength needed to triumph in the great battle of afflictions will be born in their hearts. And in spite of their appearances, frivolous persons and opportunists are usually frail souls, whose withered branches will break at the first blow of the storm. Noble spirits who are able to withstand the torments of the earthly pathway are well aware of this. Only spiritual enlightenment guarantees success in trials. No one entrusts the responsibility of a ship encumbered with preoccupations and dangerous to murder children.
So as we heard in the message from Kardec, when we pray, we need to be on the same frequency. That's the challenge. It's a practice for us. If we are praying separate prayers, it's fruitless. The power is in the togetherness. So let's practice this togetherness as we feel the presence of God providing us with breath to live, the body to be incarnated. We thank you, God, for this day. However, we still feel so selfishly that we need things, forgetting that there are people who need much more than we do. Forgive us when we think our lives are more important than the collective. When we power struggle with you, thinking that we are the center of the universe instead of you. And we know that you don't mind it because you love us, but you feel for us because we keep on suffering. Inevitably. In the torment of our selfishness, we suffer. Thank you for your kindness. in providing renewing instructions today that will hopefully lead us to a more selfless direction. May today we feel your presence, magnanimous and loving at every moment. We pray for the discarnates who are here with us. They are the majority. They also need our loving care. We pray for everyone who has their names in the book of prayer. And the teams of spirit doctors, nurses, therapists, educators, teachers, who count on each one of us to fulfill your loving will. May this therapeutic hour be blessed. And so be it. All right. Because there's candy today, I'll be inside. And in my turn, I'll give you pure candy, Carol. Yeah, she's so sweet. She's gonna help us understand the importance of acquiring new habits. Meanwhile, we'll be there enjoying something quite fascinating. All right? So come with me, friends. Welcome in.
Hey. Thank you, John. So, dear friends, today we have a very special encounter, not only with Master Jesus first and foremost, but also with the Spirit Humberto de Campos and Emmanuel, if not enough. So we're going to leave here super boosted with our souls incredibly nourished. I hope we are all ready for the ride. Buckle up, everyone, right? Buckle up. We are going to start with Humberto de Campos. Humberto de Campos used to be a writer when incarnated last in Brazil, and he has a gift with words. A gift that, of course, he took to immortality with him, because he already had this habit of using words to express ideas like no other. So today, because we are going to learn about the acquisition of new habits, we are going to start with a spirit who has the habit of utilizing words to share light, something that all of us can do in our own turn. So let us begin with Humberto de Campos. The message that Humberto de Campos, through the blessed mediumship of Chico Xavier, is sharing with us today is entitled Singular Meeting. We have used artificial intelligence to bring this message to life. We are going to say no more because never ever could we do justice to Humberto de Campos. So let him speak to us right now. Thank you, Humberto de Campos, for this very singular meeting that we are about to begin together.
A singular meeting. This is a true story registered by Brother X, the famous author of the book Good News. While in the spiritual realm, he encountered a young man who recently discarnated.
Welcome, dear brother. I know you are suffering in the valley of suicides, but we are here to help you. Tell us what you would like to say. When we share our feelings and thoughts, we may more easily find the help that we need.
You know, I was a victim of drinking in the world. It all started at a party. I remember, an innocent invitation, just a joke. A friend approached me with a bottle of alcohol. Then the friendly summons saying to me, "A drink, just a drink." But I refused it. I wasn't used to it. Around us, the apparent joy of those who drink, just appearance. So you mock the sarcastic companion. So you're one of those, a pussy, a mama's boy. What are you doing in pants? I didn't know that accepting a challenge like that was dangerous for me. The others were drinking and laughing. I ended up joining in. I swallowed a mouthful of a drink, then another and another one. Then, a dizzy head and the gushing pleasure. The next day, the need for a drink. And from the drinks, I got into addicted drunkenness. I used to work well, but soon I began to deteriorate at the job. Mistakes, absences, drunkenness, hangovers. Once my daily chores were over, I used to leave home for the bar, and the situation was always shameful night after night. Friends carrying me back home, and at the door, the tired mother waiting for me. Constantly the same sweet voice insisting and blessing. "My son, don't drink anymore." My negative reaction never failed. I raged, threatened, squeezing her trembling arms. In the immediate morning, the remorse and promises of correction and readjustment. When night came, however, there were new episodes of drinking until the last drop and nonsense. On several occasions when I woke up, I would find broken plates and glasses and the strange information that I was the culprit. I had been in a dreadful hallucination, perpetrating madness and violence. I got upset, I regretted it, but the thirst for alcohol was always stronger. Unfortunate occurrences overlapped one another, until one day I woke up in jail. Oh, why? Why prison? I was horrified by the guard's answer. "You are a murderer." Me? A murderer? And he, "Yes, you drunkard, you killed." I sobbed, crushed with suffering. My chest seemed to burst and I screamed, my God, what will become of my mother?" Then came the terrible revelation. It was she herself who you destroyed. Your mother, your victim. I didn't believe it. I asked for proof. Taken to the residence in the custody of some soldiers, I could still see her corpse in the coffin. There were signs of strangulation in her throat. Around us, the witnesses. Those who had seen me up close with my fingers nailed into my mother's flesh in a moment of insanity. I knelt down and screamed in vain. Taken to jail, positively demented, I waited until night fell, and taking advantage of some strips of a blanket, I hung myself. Since then, I've been a rag that lives, a wound that thinks. If my sad story can be of benefit to someone, tell it to others, to those who find themselves on the earthly path, at the root of invigilance or despair.
Listening to this young man's account, I decided to write it down right here, the bitter episode that I have put together in this chronicle. I then leave the report in the very words of the unfortunate young man, so it can be reflected upon and studied by reincarnated friends who may read and listen to us. I hope it can be useful to all who feel tempted to drink and use drugs. May it prevent their certain downfall and future suffering.
This account is in the book Estante da Vida, Shelf of Life, Chapter 20. The author is Brother X, or Humberto de Campos, through the mediumship of Chico Xavier.
So we may ask ourselves, why start the meeting this particular way? Because, dear friends, one second. Because how did this young man start his journey? Oh, thank you, Carlos. Teamwork effort, thank you. Thank you. Okay. How did this young man start his journey downwards, his downfall? It was one decision that seemed so innocent. Oh yeah, what's the big deal about toasting with friends? Everybody does it. One sip, one decision led to a formation of a habit which he couldn't get out of. And today we are going to study about immortal education. The good spirits define immortal education as the acquisition of new habits. In order to acquire new habits, we need to make smart, wise choices. That young man, in this true account, thought that he was making a wise choice. But in fact, he wasn't. Why? What is the thermometer that could have told him and then now can tell us whether or not we are making wise choices? If we prioritize passing pleasures versus effort and repetition to acquire the new, we are not making choices for immortality yet. In order to make choices for immortality, we still need to work hard to develop our soul muscles through effort and repetition. So it was super easy for him to attend that happy hour, which unfortunately we call happy, but there's nothing happy about it. Right? It was very easy for him to quote unquote feel happy in that happy hour. But how long did the happiness last? 5 minutes. Could he sustain it? No. He needed more and more and more. And he then prioritized destroying himself. So thermometer for us, what are we prioritizing on our end of things? Are we prioritizing passing pleasures? Are we prioritizing immediate gratification? Because if we are, the likelihood that we are repeating what we already know and not acquiring new habits is high. Another thermometer for us, are our choices constructive or destructive? Oh, but Carol, it's just a sip. Come on. Science already proves, dear friends, that alcohol kills our neurons. So it is a destructive choice and it is considered indirect suicide. And how does it begin? Again, with one choice, one decision, one habit. So let us now move to Emmanuel from Humberto de Campos to learn with Emmanuel how we can boost our spiritual intelligence in order to make wiser choices for immortality. 1 second, friends, bear with us as we share the screen again with you. Now we're ready to take another ride with the help of Emmanuel this time. So Emmanuel is going to be our personal trainer today as he helps us develop new muscles for the soul. Emmanuel is going to guide us in showing us a pathway through which we can learn to cultivate immortal habits, meaning habits that we shall take with us beyond the now, beyond this lifetime, beyond our current personality. And Emmanuel, to do this, reminds us that we are light. So 1 second, friends, as we move forward from here. There you go. So where is this all coming from? Where is this information coming from? This information that we are merely sharing with you today is coming from the book Thought and Life, already in English. Thought and Life, in the foreword of this book, Emmanuel tells us that this is a summary of an actual course taught in the spiritual realm for those of us in line to reincarnate. Why? In order for us to be better equipped to make wiser choices. So this is a prep course for reincarnation in the spiritual realm. Emmanuel says that only those who have merit take this course. So we are very fortunate that he had Jesus' permission to dictate this course, a summary of this course to Chico Xavier. Because even if we didn't make the cut in the spiritual realm, we made the cut now. So we are lucky, very fortunate. And in the few chapters that Emmanuel shares with us, he's boosting our spiritual intelligence. What does it mean to be spiritually intelligent? It involves using our intelligence to make choices that are virtuous. For example, rather than prioritizing what feels good for us, if we boost our spiritual intelligence, we will prioritize the collective good rather than the individual good. When we boost our spiritual intelligence, we will prioritize forgiving others rather than expecting others to understand us. When we choose to boost our spiritual intelligence, we will prioritize loving others rather than being loved. So, thermometer for us. How is our spiritual IQ? We are very used to measuring intellectual, cognitive IQ. I'm in the field of education myself, so I'm very used to this. And so is Rejane, right? This is the language that we, quote unquote, speak. But now Emmanuel is taking us even to a higher direction. He's helping us to measure our spiritual IQ. How do we know how high our spiritual IQ is? It depends on our ability to practice virtues, to live a virtuous life. In other words, to have the habit of being patient, to have the habit of being tolerant, to have the habit of being forgiving, to have the habit of being of goodwill to others. This is what it means to be spiritually intelligent. And how do we acquire this spiritually intelligent habits? How do we educate ourselves to increase our spiritual IQ? Let us continue learning so we find the answer together, shall we? In the book, Evolution into Worlds, Andre Lewis, the spirit Andre Lewis, teaches us a method. Thank you, Andre Lewis, through which we can acquire new habits for immortality. Again, what are the new habits for immortality that we have reincarnated to acquire? The virtues that are part of the Christ consciousness: patience, kindness, compassion, forgiveness, understanding, loving one another. The golden rule, if we could summarize it, is what it means to be virtuous, to do to others what we expect to receive. So thanks to Andre Lewis, thank you. In the book Evolution into Worlds, he gives us a method. He tells us to acquire new habits that will sit deeply in us to the point that they will stay with us beyond our current personality, meaning for immortality, we need to engage in effort because it's not easy to do something new, and repetition. So it's not enough to do something once and done. We need to do it once and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. Science shows that we need at least 21 days to acquire a habit. There are other studies that show that we need 10,000 hours of exposure to a new habit to become an expert. So imagine 10,000 hours of being virtuous is what will lead us to become somewhat of an expert, according to science. Right? So we need to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. Make an effort because it's not easy. Like going to the gym. You know that you're really working out when your muscles are sore. If your muscles are not sore, you're not making progress. And how do we learn this? In the book Evolution into Worlds, spiritually speaking, Andre Lewis tells us that from the formation of the first form of material life on the earth, we kept progressing and progressing through much effort and repetition. We now breathe unconsciously because before, in the other kingdoms of life, we engaged in much effort and repetition to now have this automatized habits. Now that we are in the human kingdom, our goal is to automatize spiritual habits. We already aced at the physical habits. Now we need to automatize spiritual habits. How? Effort, repetition, effort, repetition, effort, repetition. But another therapeutic question for us now then, that we learn the methodology of how to become more spiritually intelligent with Andre Lewis, another question for us: how spiritualized is our lives? If we wake up every day, for example, and we already think of the bills that we have to pay, or we think of a new car that we had to buy, and we think of new things that we need to acquire, and we keep looking at our investments and thinking of the next vacation, because there are people that come back from a vacation and already start planning the next one, right? So if we are caught in this cycle of devoting all of our thought and energy to material acquisitions in our own to-do list, then it's going to take even more effort, even more repetition for us to switch to spiritual habits. So if our primary concern, let's ask ourselves, what is our primary concern in our day-to-day life? What keeps ringing inside of us so, quote unquote, automatically that we don't even realize it? Is it the car that we want to pay? Is it the promotion that we want to get? Is it our retirement home? Is it a beach house? Is it our next vacation? Is it sending our kids to Harvard? Good question. Let's really ask ourselves, because if our lives are solely centered in onto around material habits, then it's going to be very challenging for us to spiritualize our choices. Sting, the singer, has a song that I find quite interesting. It's a real song. He says, I'll never forget the lyrics. He tells us, thank you, Sting, wherever you are, thank you. He reminds us, he says, we are spirits living in a material world. He literally has a song whose lyrics are, we are spirits living in a material world. Thank you, Sting, because we forget. We need Sting to remind us. We are spirits living in a material world. How often, without listening to Sting, how often do we remember this? Because we get so attached to our physical appearance, to our names, to our nationality, to the language or languages that we speak, to our homes, to our clothing, to our positions at work, even to our titles in the family, that if we were to discarnate today, think about it. Let us all think about it. If we were to discarnate today, if we close the door of our homes and we were not to go back in our current state, how would we feel? If we asked ourselves, who are we now? No longer Carol, no longer a teacher, no longer Brazilian American, no longer, quote unquote, a member of the SSVA, right? Who are we then? Are we going to be asked, how is our bank account? No. Are we going to be asked, where did we retire? No. Are we going to be asked what model car we had? No. What are we going to be asked? By our own conscience, by the way. How patient were you? How kind were you? How understanding were you? And how do we measure where we are? Because sometimes people say, oh yeah, we got this down. We got it. We feel like we are very kind and patient and understanding. Fantastic. But how do we actually know? Besides our own judgment, right? How do we know? We know by means of our relationships. Other people who mirror back to us who we really are. So if people turn to us and say, oh, you're very kind, repeatedly, people who don't know each other tell us that, then we're making some progress. But if in our relationships we say to ourselves, oh, this person pushes my buttons, this person also pushes my buttons, and this person, and this person, and this person, and we make a list longer than Santa Claus's regarding the people who push our buttons, then oops, we are not progressing as we promised ourselves that we would. The problem is not God, because as Vanessa said in her prayer earlier, God loves us no matter what. So the problem is not God. Is the problem Master Jesus? No, because he also loves us unconditionally. Where does the problem lie, beloved friends? The problem lies in us. Who is going to ask us what we did with our relationships? We will. How? The voice of our conscience. Right now we have Netflix, we have video games, we have Spotify, we have Twitter, we have all kinds of stuff to distract us. So we can even isolate ourselves in our bubble and push aside those people who push our buttons. We can say, oh, I'll see them in 3 months from now, because then I will be recovered. Right? So right now we have many buffers available to us. But when we discarnate, there will not be Twitter, Facebook, etc., WhatsApp, cardiac radio, nothing, no distractions. And we are very likely going to find out that the very people in our Santa Claus list who pushed our buttons were there to educate us, to see if we were strong enough to acquire new habits. So we may ask ourselves, why is it that we encounter annoying people wherever we go? Why? They find us like bees to honey. No matter where we go, those annoying people are always there. Guess what? This is God's way of saying, I know you are patient. So yeah, show it, please. Kindly show it. So we forget to show it once, right? So then God sends another person. Can you please show it this time? Then we forget because we say, no, this person pushes our buttons. So then God is so loving that God says, okay, one more time, Carol. You can do this. Just like a loving parent. You can do this. I'll hold your hand. And then we say, oh no, this is too much for me. But then when we discarnate, we will come to find out that these were the very people whom we had reincarnated to learn to love. So the next time we feel like pushing people aside, let us revisit this and say, God is inviting us to acquire new habits. What habit is it? Look at the list of virtues in the gospel according to Spiritism and choose one. Because it's one of them for sure. One of them for sure. And because material science, thankfully, is catching up with spiritual science. Because spiritual science is always ahead. But the goal as we move towards a world of regeneration is that the two sciences walk hand by hand. And in the field of education, my particular field, professionally, we have the theory of scaffolding or the methodology of scaffolding, right, Rejane? Which is a method widely researched, even by Harvard. I read an article yesterday from Harvard regarding scaffolding. Scaffolding is a process that started with the psychologist Vygotsky and continued up to now, and it involves modeling a new skill. So if we are in a classroom, the teacher will model the skill that the teacher is expecting the student to acquire. Then the teacher will provide guided practice, which is practicing in a bubble in a way, because the teacher is right there supporting the student along the way. And as the student tries out the new skill, they will make mistakes, which is only natural. The teacher will then provide them with feedback so that they can adjust. And the student will revisit the same class so that they can repeat through effort, repetition, effort, repetition. And the teacher, right, Rejane, will give the students 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 opportunities, right, Rejane, to repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat until we judge that they have begun to acquire that skill. Then when we see that they are doing well, we allow them to engage in independent practice, meaning practice the same skill on their own, which is our ultimate goal. So this works in the field of education. This is called scaffolding. If you're an education geek like myself, you may be interested. This is called scaffolding in the field of education. And the field of education obviously mirrors the school of life, because the spiritist science already shows that this is the way we acquire new habits, through effort and repetition. Now let us bring just a couple of highlights from Emmanuel's book, Thought and Life. These highlights are taken from chapter 5 of the book, Thought and Life, entitled Education. Emmanuel brings something quite striking to our attention, something that might surprise us. Emmanuel says, education that refines the intellect and improves humankind's inner world in knowledge and goodness, wisdom and virtue, is not achieved by instruction from the outside. Oops. And we say oops because we are trained to look for exterior stimulation. The current generation spends hours in the cell phone, and we do too, adults. We can't blame them. We are all addicted to exterior stimulation, and we tend to think, especially in American society, that the more we are highly educated in terms of what society believes is highly important, the wiser we are. Of course, education is highly important. I'm in that field. Of course, I believe in it. But we are not talking about intellectual education alone, and this is the problem. Focusing solely on intellectual education is not the purpose for which we reincarnated. Yes, we need reason. Yes, the intellect is highly important, but it needs to be boosted by the inner work. We need to also work on our inner wisdom. What does that mean, inner wisdom? The wisdom of our feelings that guide how we relate to one another. This is true education. We need the intellect, but what is the purpose of the intellect? To boost our emotional intelligence. And how do we know how emotionally and spiritually intelligent we are? Again, let's see if we were paying attention. How do we know? Through our relationships and our conscience. Our conscience will tell us based upon how we relate to one another. So if we have annoying people, Let's revisit those annoying people in our lives again and actually thank them, because they are instruments of our spiritual education. Is it the education from the outside? No, because it doesn't matter how many books we read, they will still be annoying. What will change that in us? Because we are the only people we can actually change. What will change that in us? The way we choose to relate to them. How can we change the way we choose to relate to them? By working on our feelings. This is why Jesus, our master, has recommended love one another. Because he knew that the secret of our spiritual progress is to love. So let us not only invest in our intellect, but let us also remember to follow the master and invest in our inner education. Inner education. And how do we invest in our inner education? These are Emmanuel's final crowning words to us. How do we invest in our inner education? Emmanuel has got our back. Emmanuel tells us. He tells us that we can invest in our inner education, that we can tame the realms of our hearts and our emotions by consciously choosing the good. Is it only our good? No. It's the collective good. We haven't reincarnated to help ourselves, because that we already know how to do. We have reincarnated to get out of ourselves and reach out to others. So good here is the collective good. So Emmanuel tells us that we will become highly spiritually intelligent, and we will educate ourselves in the inner recesses of our hearts for immortality. When? Emmanuel has the answer. When the will dedicates itself, the will meaning our willpower, our ability to choose, to make choices, when the will dedicates itself freely and spontaneously to goodness, it can liberate and refine the heart, transforming the mind into a precious powerhouse of sublime energy, projecting reflexes of beauty and sublimation. So if we say to ourselves, oh, we are depressed, oh, life is terrible, we never get what we want, Emmanuel breaks it down to us. Life is not about getting what, quote unquote, we want. If we are going that direction, we are going to be frustrated out of God's love for us, because God wants us to succeed in this reincarnation. God will allow us to be frustrated. So if we are telling ourselves, oh, I never get what I want, great, awesome, fabulous, fantastic, beautiful, actually divine, literally, because we are not supposed to get what we want. What are we supposed to do? We are supposed to consciously, and here's the secret, consciously choose goodness of others, not of ourselves, because we already know how to do that. So if we say, oh, I don't engage in the center because nobody has called me, oh, poor me. The call is internal, it's not external. We need to choose the good. Other people, when they choose the good, is on them. with regards to us, it is our individual choice and decision to choose the good. So if we are waiting for the heavens to open up and Jesus to materialize on the earth for us to actually start doing the good, we will not do the good and we will lose this reincarnation. If we are to really allow our light to shine, we need to make this decision ourselves. So are we waiting? Are we placing that decision in someone else's hands? Because if we are, it's not going to happen. Emmanuel is not saying wait until someone tells you to do the good. Nowhere in the literature is this written. Wait for someone to call you. Stay seated. Don't go anywhere. Emmanuel doesn't say that. Emmanuel doesn't say get your number and get in line until you are called. No. Emmanuel says it's on you. You need to make that conscious decision. So every day, let us ask ourselves, what decisions am I making, are we making to serve the general good? Let us really ask ourselves, because this is when we will be fulfilling our reincarnatory plan and acquiring new habits. Every day, what are we doing that helps serve the general good? What are we doing to consciously choose the general good? This is the question that will lead us to an encounter with the Master. There is an account by Humberto de Campos, the same spirit with whom we began our journey today, where James the disciple was meditating for 40 days without eating, waiting for the Master who had discarnated to come to him mediumistically because he missed the Master enormously. And after 40 days of fasting and praying at the mount, he saw Jesus. But Jesus didn't see him. Jesus walked right past him. And he said, Master, Master, come on, look at us, look at me. And Jesus said, I'm sorry, I can't stop to look at you because down the mount, there are many people who are suffering. So Jesus said to James, the disciple, if you would like my company, if you miss me and you would like to be with me, come along and help. I cannot stop to be with you. So right now, Jesus is asking you and I, all of us, would you like to come along? Because I cannot stop just to be with you. This is the Master of immortal wisdom, teaching us that we have reincarnated to get out of ourselves and to prioritize the general good. How often? Always. So now, let us stay in the company of the loving Master as we call Vanessa and Daisy for our classes. Thank you, John.
think that means she wants me to put the people up here for passes. Hmm? Yeah, okay. Oh, sure.
All right. While there is much joy happening there, it's colorful, joyful, sweet, right? Let us feel on this side the presence of the loving and kind spirits. They have prepared this moment for us. They know the remedies that we need for the mind and the bodies. Let us feel their presence. Let us feel their envelopment in new healing, helping them so they can help all of us. Let us help one another. Hey, John, one more. One more. Thank you. So let us begin by visualizing the doctor of all doctors, Master Jesus, with us, in front of us, with his compassionate smile, loving embrace. We want to thank Jesus for his patience over these millennia. Kindly he emanates pure love that envelops us in new strength. Let us help one another visualizing flowers of healing. As the loving spirits are now distributing flowers of healing to each one of us, let's receive them, smelling the perfume of healing, balancing minds and bodies. And the colors of the flowers envelop us in new light of hope, of love and joy. Let us all now look at Jesus' picture in front of us. He's our best friend. He loves us dearly. He counts on us to boost the progress of the earth. Let us feel his loving smile and his healing grace, allowing him to bathe us in the waters of his love. Let us look at the picture of Jesus. He's our best friend. He knows exactly who we are, what we need. He loves us dearly. He's the governor of our planet, and he's now showering each one of us with new strength, new health, and deep healing. Let us feel his joy of living, enveloping us in pure light. Let us look at Jesus' picture on the screen, feel his presence. He's our best friend. He knows us. Let us allow him to heal us, balancing minds and bodies, visualizing his wonderful heart, showering us with new light of love and tranquility. that we're waiting. We are waiting for him. Let us help one another by visualizing the healing hands of Master Jesus applying onto us the healing that we needed to balance mind and bodies. Let us raise our thoughts in gratitude and help one another. So let us pray. Thank you, Master Jesus, for your loving kindness, your unconditional love for us. We visualize your presence in our homes, as honored as we are. For you bring flowers of healing. May their perfume last this next week as we prepare ourselves to be in synchronicity with your plans. The divine designs for the planet Earth, count on us. In our efforts of sincerity, honesty, in our efforts of true compassion, understanding, fraternity, and forgiveness. As you envelop all of us in your care, we pray for those who are connected to each one of us in two realms and may be in greater need than us. May they receive this banquet of light, strengthening them and guiding them to you. With much gratitude, we close this meeting. And so be it. Okay, Felipe is going to help me here, right? Felipe, come. Yes, yes, yes. So 2 announcements. Yes, come Felipe. One is that next week we have special guests coming from Brazil. They will speak English, no translation. Geraldo Lemos Neto, who was a very close friend of Chico Xavier, though he was much younger. But as young as he was, he decided to visit Chico Xavier, establish a relationship. And today he's one of the few in Brazil who withholds the mission to spread the legacy of Chico Xavier. Not because of Chico Xavier, but because of what he represents. That when Jesus said, do what I did, and it's going to work, Chico Xavier proved to us that Jesus was not wrong. It's possible. Geraldo Lemos Neto not only has a publisher, writes books, he's a medium, he's a speaker, but he is one of the few people in Brazil who created a museum in one of the homes where Chico Xavier lived. So if you go to the state of Minas Gerais, in the capital, Belo Horizonte, nearby there's a tiny city named Peter Leopoldo, where Chico was born. In one of the homes in which he lived, Geraldo Lemos Neto created a beautiful museum with state-of-the-art equipment, like the ones you see in Washington, D.C. It's humble for the humbleness of Chico Xavier, but it's amazing. And he does much more than that. And João Pedro is coming with him. Together, they are going to spend a week with us. We're not paying them a penny. They are coming with their own finances. We don't need to do anything, just to hug them and listen to them. Because on Friday, this coming Friday and the following 2 Fridays, we have a special meeting for those who are interested in knowing more about how to help in Spiritism. They're going to direct those talks for people who are Spiritist workers, practitioners, the commitment to Spiritism. And then on Saturday, they will be with us in Washington, D.C., talking about healing. And then on Sunday here, we're going to have a special talk with them, followed by a special lunch, if rain allows, hopefully. And on that day, the art that the children made today, we're going to show it to you. It's going to be, you're not going to take home. Don't worry, parents. You're not going to take candy home. You'll be safe. It's going to stay here for the discarnate spirits to eat. No, I'm joking. But next week, you'll see the art as they learned about the importance of animals to humans, especially in the spiritual realm. And on that day, we're going to wrap up the summer Spiritist Challenge, right, Felipe?
Yes, so 1 week left. Everybody, there's still time. So if you like, next Sunday, that's when you're going to, celebrate together with Geraldino, with João Pedro. And so we invite everybody. There's still time to participate. Please visit us in our library or the bookstore. Watch an episode of The Chosen and write about it. Read one of the Emmanuel novels and also write one paragraph about it. And also like one of the spiritual books, any books that we have in our, of like over 1,000 that we have in our library, and write also a short a paragraph about it. And then we're gonna have the gifts that we're putting together with a lot of love for everyone.
So, just a reminder, for children, it's a little different, right? For children, it's about a drawing of one of the visual stories, right, Felipe? A poem or a song or a paragraph about any of the Spiritist books could even be the same. And recommend a book to a friend. But you need to send it to our email at the Spiritist out of Virginia, or bring the paperwork. So we have proof, right? We would love to read what you discovered, right? And who knows, if it's amazing, we may ask your permission to publish at the Spiritist magazine. All right? All right. That's it. If you have any question, let us know. Remember, we have the fraternal counseling, the spiritual treatment. We are here to give you a hand, okay? For the children who did the work, you want to go back to the room, I'll be there with you. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, come here. Say it, please.
We also have one more week for our back to school. So we are receiving donations of school supplies. There are several schools nearby that have several children in need. So next Sunday we'll be wrapping up the back to school campaign. So one more week too. Thanks everybody. Have a beautiful Sunday.